For the 15th problem of this first ACT practice test, this month Cami sold 70 figurines in two sizes. The large figurines sold for $12 each, and the small figurines sold for $8 each. The amount of money he received from the sales of the large figurines was equal to the amount of money he received from the sales of the small figurines. How many large figurines did Cami sell this month? So often with problems like this, you'll have to create a variable or two and then come up with some equations which you can then solve. So just to simplify things, I'm going to call the large figurine L, so L for large figurine, and S for small. And now we just have to go back through this paragraph and figure out what the equations are. So this month Cami sold 70 figurines in two sizes. This right here, 70 figurines in two sizes, gives us an equation already, because we know that if we add the number of large figurines sold to the number of small figurines sold, it has to be 70 in total. So we can write that L plus S is equal to 70. So now we have one equation with two unknowns, which we can't solve. So that means we have to go back and find a second equation. So we know how much each figurine sells for. The large sell for 12 and the small sell for 8. But the equation comes from this next sentence. The amount of money he received from the sales of the large figurines, so sales of the large figurines, was equal to the amount of money he received from the sales of the small figurines. So essentially, we can write this abstractly at first and then figure out how to actually put our variables into it. So we know that the money from the large is equal to the money from the small. And let's think about how to generate money from the large. So for every large we sell, let's say we have L amount of larges, we get $12. So we'll have to multiply this by $12. And this should make some sense, since let's say if we sell two larges, it would be 2 times 12, which is $24. So the same idea applies for the small figurines, except now we have each figurine being sold for $8. So essentially we'd have the number of small figurines sold times by this $8 per figurine. So now we have our second equation. Since if you have two unknowns, the only way to solve it is to have two equations. So from here, with this system of equations, what we want to do is solve one of the equations for one of the variables, and then plug that equation into the second equation. So what I mean by that, let's start with the simpler equation. L plus S is equal to 70. I'm going to solve for S, because we're eventually trying to figure out how many large figurines that Cami sold. And by solving for S, I'll essentially eliminate it. So to solve for S, I'm going to subtract L from each side, so that S is equal to 70 minus L. Now, going to my second equation here, anywhere I see an S, I'm going to replace it with this 70 minus L. So let's rewrite this equation, but now with S replaced with 70 minus L. So we have 12 times L is equal to 8 times 70 minus L. So now we have an equation with just one variable which we can solve for. And to actually solve this, let's first distribute this 8 to each of these terms in parentheses. So we have 12 times L is equal to 8 times 70, which is 560, minus 8 times L. And now let's add 8L to each side so that we get all of the L's on one side of the equation. So we have 20L is equal to 560. And now dividing everything by 20 so that we can solve for L, what we're left with is that L is equal to 28. So in essence, what we found is that there were 28 large figurines that were sold. And that is choice letter B.